Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something truly wild. It's a gripping tale of greed, karma, and some seriously terrifying folklore straight from the creators at Skull Tales. We're going to dive deep into the story of Talab Kagulam, the slave of the pond. And listen, this is definitely not your standard ghost story. It's a really intense look at the desperate lengths people will go to when they're trying to escape poverty, and the hidden, bloody costs of trying to take a shortcut in life. Give me my hair back. I want to start right there because this terrifying demand immediately sets the stakes for everything that follows. Just picture it. It's exactly midnight. You're right at the edge of the black pond. There's a terrified man on his knees, just completely trembling. The water starts to bubble, and this horrifying figure emerges from the dark, demanding its stolen property, before dragging the man straight down into the depths. It's such a chilling hook from the source material, and it plunges us directly into the atmosphere of this story, where ancient curses feel very, very real. So let's jump right into part one, the legend of Kala Talab. To really understand how we got to that crazy midnight encounter, we have to establish the setting. We're in Devgar village, which is this place totally shadowed by the sinister waters of Kala Talab, the Black Pond. The supernatural terror here is actually grounded in a very real, unsolved crime. Let's look at the timeline for a second. 20 years ago, the village's wealthiest merchant suddenly vanished without a trace. 3 days later, his corpse was found floating in the pond, and the strangulation marks on his neck made it absolutely clear. This was cold-blooded murder. But the killer? They were never caught. Fast forward to the present day, and the locals are utterly convinced that the murdered merchant's soul never moved on. It just stayed in the water, warping into something monstrous that now haunts Kala Talab. So what exactly are they so terrified of? Well, the villagers call it a girha. It's a water spirit that actually used to be human, but now it has these milk-white eyes, a rotting face, and hair just tangled up with moss and mud. It's notorious for just standing in the pond, staring blankly at the shore, and if anyone gets even a little too close, boom, it drags them straight down to the depths. It's a classic, terrifying manifestation of unresolved trauma and just pure vengeance. Which brings us to part two, the price of endless greed. You have to ask yourself, why would anyone ever go near a place like this? Well, enter Raghav. He's a young man completely crushed by poverty and desperately looking for a way out. He's just so tired of living a poor man's life, and that sheer desperation makes him incredibly vulnerable to a terrible, terrible idea. When he talks to the village elder, Ramo Kaka, he's handed this massive temptation. Legend says if a brave soul can manage to steal just a single hair from the girha, that monster's spirit basically becomes their absolute slave, forced to grant them unlimited wealth. For a desperate guy like Raghava, that isn't a warning at all. It's a blueprint. So Raghav decides the risk is totally worth the reward. The source text takes us step by step through his midnight heist, and it is tense. It's 2 a.m. The air is thick with the sound of crickets. Raghav is hiding behind a tree, waiting. Suddenly, the water actually begins to boil. The girha emerges, bringing with it this overwhelming stench of rotting flesh. Raghav's heart is pounding so hard he thinks it's literally going to burst right out of his chest. But he creeps up from behind, violently snatches a tuft of the monster's hair, sprints all the way back home, and instantly locks that hair inside a small iron box. Against all odds, he actually pulls it off. But here is where karma kicks in, right? For Raghav, his wildest dreams literally come true. The bound girha grants his wishes, filling his home with gold coins and vast lands. It's basically Aladdin's lamp. But in this incredibly tragic irony, as Raghav's wealth explodes, the village body count starts to rise. First, a shepherd vanishes, then a farmer, and then, horrifyingly, 2 children. Raghav desperately tries to convince himself it's all just a coincidence. But come on. There are no coincidences in a story like this. One night, Raghav looks out his window and actually sees his slave, the girha, standing right in his courtyard. It's holding a dead body, just smiling, before carrying it off to the pond. When Raghav finally confronts the monster, horrified that innocent people are dying for his money, the girha simply replies with this chilling line, "Every wish has a price, master." The wealth wasn't being magically created out of thin air. It was being paid for in blood. Ramu Kaka lied. The girha doesn't give anything for free. It trades human lives for gold. And eventually, it's absolutely going to come for its master's life too. All right, moving on to part 3, a horrifying family secret. So Raghav is losing it. He realizes his entire fortune is soaked in the blood of his neighbors. And to make matters worse, the Griha starts appearing in his dreams, standing by his bed, demanding its hair back. The psychological toll is just immense, and the whole village is terrified. Raghav's servants flee, his wife falls ill, and the village council, the panchayat, convenes. They issue a brutal ultimatum. They know Raghav's sudden wealth and the village deaths are connected. So they drag him out and threaten to throw him into the pond to end the curse themselves. Raghav is completely broken at this point. He confesses to everything and just begs them for one single night to go back to the pond, return the hair, and fix his catastrophic mistake. As Raghav stands there at the edge of the boiling, foul-smelling Kala Talab, getting ready to throw the iron box into the water, we really have to pause and ask this question. Who is the real monster here? Is it the Girya, who is really just operating by the rules of its own curse? Is it Raghav, whose desperation completely blinded him to the suffering of everyone else? Or is there someone else entirely pulling the strings? Raghav throws the hair into the water. The Girha emerges, massive and terrifying, celebrating that its bond is finally broken and it can take its revenge. But here's the thing. The Girha isn't looking at Raghav. From out of the shadows steps Ramu Kaka, the sweet elderly man who told Raghav about the curse in the first place. Ramu Kaka is holding an old copper amulet, and he confesses the darkest truth imaginable. 20 years ago, out of pure, bitter jealousy, Ramu Kaka was the one who strangled the wealthy merchant and threw him into the pond. And then he drops the ultimate bombshell. Ramu Kaka looks right at Raghav and says, "This is your father." The wealthy merchant who was murdered 20 years ago, the man whose soul literally mutated into the monstrous Gurha, was Madhav, Raghav's own father. Ramu Kaka intentionally manipulated Raghav into stealing the hair, hoping that binding the monster to its own biological son would somehow pacify its rage. "I thought seeing his son would change him," Ramu says. Man, he was entirely wrong. Karma comes full circle real fast in the waters of Kala Talab. The Gurha, Madhav, has waited 20 long years for this exact moment. Completely ignoring his son, he grabs the screaming Ramu Kaka and drags him down into the freezing depths. And with his killer finally punished, the monster's rotting face actually softens. He transforms back into the human face of Madhav, thanks his son for coming to the pond and breaking the cycle of greed, and then just gently vanishes into smoke. The water of the pond immediately turns clean and totally still. Which brings us to the end. Part 4, The Curse Never Truly Dies. Following that crazy climax, Raghav gives away every single cursed coin back to the villagers and chooses to live a simple, honest life. The pond actually dries up, and the village thinks the ancient curse is finally dead for good. But energy like that, it rarely just vanishes. The source text leaves us with this final, chilling image. A villager is walking past the dried-up pond at night. He sees something glowing in the dirt. It's a single, black hair. He picks it up, and a voice behind him whispers, "Give me my hair back." The villager turns around, and standing there, dripping wet in a bone-dry pond, is a brand new Gurha. It's Ramu Kaka, and his eyes aren't just burning with revenge, they are burning with the hunger of hundreds of trapped souls. The cycle has completely started over. Okay, as we wrap up this incredibly dark narrative, the creators at Skull Tales actually pivot to share a very real, non-fictional number with their audience. 9%. According to the source material, despite spending 6 years meticulously crafting and bringing these terrifying and intricate stories to life, only 9% of their viewers are actually subscribed to the channel. In the world of Devgar, we saw that every wish has a terrible, bloody price. But in the real world, supporting the creators who painstakingly build these fascinating stories costs nothing at all. The source text concludes with a really direct appeal. A simple like, share, and subscribe is literally the fuel they need to keep these amazing tales coming. It's a great reminder that behind every captivating explainer like this, there's a hardworking team trying to entertain us. So definitely drop a like and subscribe. But before you go, think about this for a second. If Ramu Kaka told Raghav the secret of the hair to get his own revenge, who originally told Ramu Kaka? The curse of Kala Talab might be much older and much darker than anyone realizes. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious out there and, maybe stay away from strange ponds at midnight.